Welcome to America, land of the free or home of the oppressed. You decide today on the Transcontinental Railroad edition of America. Let's begin with the road to the Transcontinental Railroad. After the War of 1812, Manifest Destiny really started to near its completion when the U.S. began to purchase Western territory. Prior to the War of 1812, the U.S. had purchased the Louisiana Territory in 1803, which over doubled the size of the United States and created a need for rapid transport in order for the U.S. to sufficiently supply and take resources from the Midwest region. In 1845, Texas was annexed into the United States. This drastically increased the size of the South, but was relatively far out of reach until the connection of railroads into the immediate area. In 1846, the Oregon Territory was added to the United States. This opened the northwestern frontier to settlers. Many settlers died due to the slow rate of wagons and hazardous terrain. This caused an immediate need for additional transportation. In 1848, the Mexican Secession was added to the United States. This completed the U.S. idea of Manifest Destiny when it expanded the United States from coast to coast and set a scene for the new and upcoming Transcontinental Railroad. In 1853, the United States felt a need for the railroad. The Gadsden Purchase was a solution to their issues. This purchase allowed for a train to easily travel coast to coast and provide safe and reliable transportation. Now that the land in the United States is suitable for the Transcontinental Railroad, let's begin discussing the construction of the railroad. Construction of the Transcontinental Railroad began in 1863. The first route was meant to connect San Francisco Bay with Council Bluffs, Iowa. The Western Pacific Railroad Company, the Central Pacific Railroad Company, and the Union Pacific Railroad Company were three different railroad companies designated to build and construct the Transcontinental Railroad. The Western Pacific Railroad Company was in charge of the construction between Oakland, California, and Sacramento, California. The Central Pacific Railroad Company was in charge of the railroad between Sacramento, California, and Promontory Summit, Utah. The Union Pacific Railroad Company was in charge of the construction between Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Promontory Summit, Utah. The problem with working with three different companies was that they never developed a standardized track size. This lack of standard track caused people to have to transfer rails multiple times in order to reach their destination. This was inconvenient and caused inaccessibilities to some regions. Life on the railroad for many workers was not very easy. It was a treacherous time for them, and they had very little pay. Confrontations with Native Americans caused the workers on the railroad to face dangerous conditions. These natives were being displaced due to the construction of the railroads and decided that they needed to fight for their territory. Racism was another issue that workers faced on the rails. White men were paid a total of $35 a month, while the Chinese immigrants were only paid $25 a month. After much hard work, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed under the presidency of President Ulysses S. Grant. The railroad was an expensive internal improvement with a grand total cost of $50 million. Now that we've learned about the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, let's hear what Jeremy Krauss, the president of the Central Texas chapter of the Historical Railroad Society, has to say about the effects of the Transcontinental Railroad on society in a whole.
Today, kind of probably these and some of these other, your next question, commodities, such as electricity is coming from coal in Wyoming, and that all comes by rail. To plant those, I think about 6 or 7 utility plants here in Texas. Some of the electricity that you're up to where you live is coming from coal that came from Wyoming. The electronics, the computers, basically everything you buy at Target, Walmart, basically, just all these different retail stores came in by containers. That they come across the Pacific and load them onto these ports. Seattle, Los Angeles, Oakland, all up and down the Pacific Coast, the East Coast. It comes in by containers, and they're also from huge conveyor vessels. They put them on trains, run them across the country to different ramps, and load them on, then they're trucked, to the stores. The car, and just about everything that's made, steel, cereal that you eat, it goes by train at some point.
Indicated by Mr. Krauss, the Transcontinental Railroad caused major change that allowed the social structure and economic structure of the United States to change. By 1860, more than half the United States population lived west of the Appalachian Mountains, compared to less than 10% in 1800, and the building of the Transcontinental Railroad opened the West to hunters who detrimentally killed the buffalo population. Then, finally, the railroad made the West in a distant area, but not in a distant time frame. So it reduced travel time from 6 months to 1 week. That's a 96% decrease in travel time. The modern era, even with technological improvements such as the airplane, trains are a major transportation source. They transport coal and major appliances such as cars. These appliances are able to be transported to us at a much lower cost, and because the train is transporting a large portion of a item, it is able to reduce fuel costs and help the environment. And trains are being used in everyday TV shows such as the beloved Thomas the Train.